The pod today is it'll all come out in the Warsh. And when I first said that to myself just about a minute ago, it made me think about my very dearly departed father, because as a Midwestern guy, he had something in his accent that he would say Washington, as opposed to Washington D.C., and that's just can't take the Cleveland out of the boy. So Mr. Kevin Warsh, who is the subject of our visit today, he is the gentleman, of course, that your dear leader Donald J. Trump appointed to be Jerome Powell's successor. And there's been plenty of commentary about Mr. Warsh. Will he be the best thing ever, or will it be disaster? And it'll be neither of those things. I think, as much as I would like to take the opportunity to be critical of Donald Trump when he does silly shit, which he does frequently, and certainly will never pull any punches in that respect. But under the circumstances, versus Kevin Hassett, the other Kevin, and some other freaking heretics that were being rumored, just random people that will do Trump's bidding and perhaps destroy the economy in the meantime. Kevin Warsh is not a bad. He is a remarkably well qualified human. Not an economist, but he's an attorney, as Jay Powell, a great Fed chair, is not an economist. Now, Kevin has some chops in economics. He embarrassingly young, like all of these folks are, but that's he was a shining star from the time he got out of school. He was a great student at Stanford undergrad. He was cum laude at Harvard Law, and he also after that he futzed around in Cambridge, at Harvard, and down at MIT Sloan, and took some postgraduate work in economics. Uh, bright as can be, bright as can be. And he went to where did he go to? Morgan Stanley, and did marvelously well there. He then stepped into a role with George W. Bush, George Bush the Younger, and he was part of the economic council at the White House, and he did a wonderful job there by all accounts. Um, he he was then he and I believe this is still the case. He was the youngest person, man, youngest human to be appointed a Fed governor. So he stepped into that role when he was 35 years old. I don't know what you were doing. What were you doing at 35? I was, yes, you know, in Miami, and and apparently having a really great time. Yeah, he again, remarkably accomplished, well respected by his peers, and went on to serve at the Fed. He left a little bit early. This part of the evolution story of, as all of us, we learn and we grow. Unless you're Donald Trump, and then you just get older and meaner, and you diminish, and you rely more on your controller, and things spin out of control, and a lot of people are harmed in the process. You bank money for your children, and then we wait for the next news report. So that's DJT in a nutshell. But Kevin Warsh, again, uh, marvelously accomplished as a student, as a finance guy on Wall Street, and heady times for sure. And being picked to work for the president, the Council of Economic the council, uh, where so many economists and other senior leaders uh, go in and punch their ticket because it's a good gig. You're in the seat of power. You're next to the most powerful man in the world, and you would advise on matters economic. It's a delightful gig if you have the chops, and he certainly did and does. So he did that and spent some time on the Fed, but he resigned before no scandal at that time. Um, Reportedly, from his accounts and what I've read about him, is that he was not real happy with the QE, quantitative easing, which, as you know, is in its most basic form, is juicing the economy a little bit. The dual mandate of the Fed, as you've heard about, is managing inflation down and labor force participation, employment, and you have a dual mandate. Some similar boards around the world have a single mandate. We don't. We have, I think, since the beginning, or at least since it mattered, the dual mandate. And he was not a big fan of what was then the Ben Bernanke quantitative easing. Now, a man like Kevin Warsh, you look at an early exit from those terms for the Fed board governors, not for the chair. The chair is in 4-year increments, but the governors themselves have 10 to 12-year terms, long, long terms. So if you leave, you still spent 5 years in, you say, oh, he left 7 years early. Yeah, uh, with perspective, and he was a guy, and that is in demand. Wouldn't that be nice? I mean, it wouldn't be nice to have people knocking on your door saying, "I would like to pay you a lot of money to do things that you know about." You so he has done various. He has had various endeavors along the way, and currently, well, one of the most important ones, one of his crowning accomplishments, is that he married very, very well, very well. I don't know his wife, but his he married into the Lauder family, Estee Lauder family, and his wife is one of two daughters of Ron Lauder, who is kind of the senior guy in the family. They're as you can imagine, a big company in a relatively profitable industry. He, I guess, Ron, the father, his net worth is, we'll call it 5 billion plus or minus, and then the daughters, um, Jing, which is his wife, I think she's worth about two. And the other sister, I can't remember if younger or older, is worth about 75% of that too. So they're all involved in the business or in fashion more generally. The other thing that brings them into this month in February, as I showed in my brief visit last night. They're never brief. I say it's going to be a quick one, and it generally turns out to be something else entirely. So either congratulations or condolences. We talked about the owners of several NFL teams who are prominently featured, some prominently and some less prominently featured on the Epstein lists and files and such things. The teams that we talked about were, the Patriots, the Jets, the Giants, the Commanders, um, Panthers, Dolphins, and Vikings. And talk about dubious distinction from my list that was in the feed. I guess I did my my video on the feed, and then I attached a Twitter tweet that I had that was just a list of the teams and a little disclaimer because, of course, being on a list with other people that did similar things doesn't make you a criminal. Being on in the Epstein files, on the proverbial Epstein list, which whatever that means, if you're involved in that, then you could have been Jeffrey Epstein's pen pal. It's conceivable. People get lonely, they have pen pals, and they correspond, and they write letters. Do they? Maybe not anymore. They do things. Maybe you were somebody that maybe you were Jeffrey Epstein's Avon lady. Okay. Yeah, he had a girlfriend, Ghislaine Maxwell. Maybe he bought her some makeup. I don't know. It doesn't mean that you were guilty of trafficking minors for prostitution. Certainly, it would almost be inconceivable that so many people could be doing that particular crime and not enough convictions, except of course that they're all billionaires. So the strike rate at convicting billionaires of anything is much lower than the general population. That's that's just common sense. That's you're rich, you get away with a lot more shit than if you're poor. If you're white, you get away with a lot more shit than if you're brown, black, or other. Tale as old as time. So all of those folks, I was saying the dubious distinction, of course, is the Washington team, which used to be called the Redskins. Donald Trump threatens to make it again the Redskins, and of course, it's the Commanders, and it's owned by Josh, last name. Well, Josh for right now. I'll come up with it. It's not Miller, but it's something in that Josh Harris, um, a brilliant investor hedge fund guy. Just r- almost unbelievably intelligent and successful. And he owns the Commanders. He owns the Philadelphia 76ers. He owns the New Jersey Devils hockey. He owns Crystal Palace in English Premier League soccer team. He owns a piece of a NASCAR team in piece or in full. I don't really know. He's worth also another guy that's worth maybe he's worth 8, 9, 10 billion. You know, and a young guy. It's maddening. It's, he's I think he maybe graduated from school, but he's about my age. So we'll call him young, of course, because that would make me feel better about myself. Except for I don't have the billions, which is a little bit annoying. But obviously, I'm not going to have a grievance. I'm not going to go all DJT about not having a billion because I had a lovely lunch today and and I got to walk the dog. So that's a pretty damn good day, and I get to spend some time with you nice people, even the ones of you that aren't that nice, the ones that are truly bad bunnies. Are there any bad bunnies out there? I'm not sure. So, that gentleman I just referenced has what he owns 5 sports franchises and other things. Was he involved in any way, or was he just in that billionaire milieu of people that billionaires, they get together and talk about how awesome it is to be really fucking rich. There are people that do that. I'm sure there are all across the country. They it must be fun. It must be nice. It must get really tiring. It must be tedious too, right? So, yeah. So, where am I? How am I? I got off on that tangent, and how am I going to connect this back to this wonderfully talented and accomplished young man who is going to be, presumably, our next Fed chair? He's going to sail through the Senate. He's going to sail through. The only thing that's floating out there is the connection he's connected to Epstein. And I think that everybody I'm going to talk about in February, without, again, my word that I just used a few minutes ago, which is tedious. Um, I don't want it to be that way, but I think that it's important for us to remind ourselves how widespread the corruption from this Epstein mess is, and all of the people rushing around to cover it up, and all the people that are enabling DJT in his effort to make it go away, when the only people that can tell me to shut TFU, yeah, STFU, and move on are the victims. They're the only people with, in my world, the only people with standing to say move on is if all of the victims get together, stand on a stage, talk about whatever they'd like to talk about, have that, hopefully, uh, catharsis that comes from that process in disclosing everything that they care to disclose, all the things that Pamela Joe Bondi, is keeping them. They're not getting glory from any of this, but can they get some healing? They deserve it. They were minor. The fact that they were women is not material because, of course, if boys were, uh, uh, young boys were victimized in the same way, it would be just as bad. But as a girl dad, yeah, I'm pretty interested in seeing some beatings issued, if only figuratively, right? Um, so let's hope we get there. So Kevin Warsh and his wife were mentioned in the Epstein file mess, right? Uh, Briefly about a planned meeting Epstein on the island of St. Bart's, right? Which, if you've not had the pleasure, it is in an area of in a region with some islands that are, have homes in resorts that accommodate ultra wealthy. St. Bart's is uh, way up there, even by Richie Rich Island standards. St. Bart's, it's a lot of mega wealthy kind of folks, which is just delightful, right? As compared to let's see, like the ABCs, Aruba One Air and Curacao that are right off the coast of Venezuela. I had the pleasure of visiting all of them a number of times just because of the proximity, and I used to do some work down in the islands, Saint Martin and other places back 40 years ago with my dear father. the aforementioned, dearly departed. So, yeah, so there was the mention in the file that there was going to be a meeting of some sort between Kevin Warsh, his wife, Epstein, and others. Does that mean assign guilt to this man for that? No. And as far as I could see, these things they perk up. That photo I shared last night of people joining Epstein for a dinner party, including a very young Zuckerberg, Musk, um, the LinkedIn, those guys, right? The real tech bros. And I just looked at it, and it's a dark picture. Whatever. It wasn't suggesting illicit behavior in that moment when the picture was taken, but it's a reminder that so many people knew a lot more about what was going on, and they knew it in many instances well after his, I would say, conviction. He pled out to soliciting prostitution, right? And procuring, whatever they call it down there in Florida. But essentially, uh, the minor, uh, once one count with an adult and one count with a minor. So, as far as I'm recalling right here without looking at it, bad sex with minor, it's and in a manner in which that they had to include prostitution in the charging document. It's bad. It was a matter of public record, and it was for years. While a lot of these people chose to maintain their affiliation with Jeffrey Epstein. So that's the maddening part about it, is that how many victims could have been saved, could have, how many people could have avoided being victimized by Maxwell and Epstein if people had stood up, you know, and worked a little bit. It's like, oh, it's like Trump. Oh well, it's just Trump being Trump. No, 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 no. That gets to the fuck no line. That doesn't cut it anymore. And this round, Trump 2.0 knew what he was, spelled out what he was going to do in clear and convincing language, and you still just passed over it and said, well, maybe it'll work out just fine, and maybe because my my retirement account is going to get juiced, that I'm going to just turn a blind eye and forget the fact that I have teenage daughters, and we'll just pretend like it never happened. No, because then you waive the right to say any fucking thing at all on the subject, right? Because your behavior makes is kind of self canceling in a way. You know, you behave that way, then you don't have the right to open your effing mouth about the subject, right? Just go on to go do your things, whatever those things are, and lie to your priest, and go on with your life and hope for the very best. I wish you well. So, sort of like you were a Yankees fan. Yeah. So, Kevin, brush with a bad guy, whatever it turned out to be. We'll learn some more. We won't learn some more. It's not, it is not, in my humble opinion, what I've seen so far is not disqualifying. And that word, of course, means something very different now. than perhaps it did pre-Trump, because he has, to many people's delight, he has sort of turned norms upside down. And for JD Vance and the other folks are like, well, excuse me if I just want to be honest, you know, uh, J- you know, JD Vance. I mean, the poster child for wanting to, call a spade thing. He is reprehensible, right? And we're going to be living it on repeat for unfortunately for I think a pretty long time, because who is it? Marco? It ain't Marco. The one that I'm wrestling with and I'm going to work on later on this week is the dynamic between Stephen Miller. Does he get more rope from Trump? Will When Trump moves off the stage, excuse me, will Miller still be there, or will Vance see Miller as a risk to, someone that will be struggling for power with him, and is the guy that may do something truly, truly horrifying, as if 10 bullets in Alex Preddy is not horrifying enough. But you see what Trump has done to our nation, our media, our sensibilities, is he's warped them, and in such a way that these things are not as shocking as they should be if we were wired properly, and we hadn't had uh, ice cold water poured into our circuitry by X years of Fox News and Trump and other blather. And that, of course, running up to the midterms is only going to get more intense, because TikTok and X will be magnifying that with the help of the Chinese Communist Party and others, and DJT's controller Vladimir. So that's going to be it's going to be loud, it's going to be messy, but we'll get there. So I'll bounce back and say a few more things about Kevin, who, again, if you had a son, and I'm not going to say something condescending, because everybody's younger than I am, but he's only 5 years younger than I am. So I'm not going to say he's like a kid, but imagine the pride as a parent. You have a son. Said, "Oh, hey, what'd you do today?" Well, won. I won $100 on the Seahawks last night. Bite your tongue. I had a nice lunch with this girl that works in the office next door. My boss told me that I did a nice job on a project, and oh, by the way, I'm going to be the youngest governor on the Federal Reserve Bank of the United States. Did I mention that? I mean, think about that. 35 freaking years old. You're a Fed board governor. That's magnificent. You know, you you pay Stanford, you pay for Stanford, you pay for Harvard Law, but he got in, and he didn't skate. He was summa cum laude, or better, and did the other postgraduate work. So he earned it. But isn't it great to see? And we know that we have a guy that, if confirmed, he will be qualified to do the job. The curveball, which which I will move on to once I bounce past dad-in-law. So Ron Lauder, who's 80, 81, 82, something like that. The patriarch of the Lauder family fortune, Estee Lauder, and he's like I said, he's the dad is, maybe he's 5, 6 billion, a lot of money. He was like the the owner of the n- your uh, New York Football Giants, um, Steve Tisch, was mentioned in the Epstein files hundreds of times, a lot. I think Tisch was about 400 times. So he's got as they used to say in I Love Lucy, he got some splaining to do. You know, it's gonna be a little cold around the house for old Steve Tisch, for sure, and Mr. Lauder. Now, Mr. Lauder also, uh, by the an 80-year-old guy, he was at University of Penn when DJT was. So this is an old friend, you know. You would be if the son-in-law wasn't as magnificently accomplished, you would be thinking about nepotism. Like, so, oh, okay, so this guy got a job on the Fed because his dad knew. Yeah, no, this guy earned it by himself. He's a brilliant man. He's a brilliant man. But the Epstein connection with Ron Lauder, it's it's a more sticky and profound connection, and there will be a lot more about that. Will it spill out on the family in any other way? Will it cause um, will it cause Kevin's connection to be exploited a little bit more by other people during the confirmation process? Perhaps. It's a bloody sport, and it's a big election coming up. So will some Democratic Party senators try to make more of that than is actually there for Kevin Warsh? I don't know, but it's politics. I mean, there's a lot of crazy shit, and a lot of it's coming right out of Donald's cankles, right? So it's on every side of the game. So there's Kevin, there's his father-in-law, there's uh, Kevin's resume, Kevin's CV that is just absolutely freaking mind blowing, and so he gets in the interim too, as he was nominated in last month in January to replace Powell. Uh, he has also he's on the board of directors of um, of UPS and other companies. I mean, who wouldn't want a guy like that on your board, right? He's he is smart, and oh, and he no, he's been on two other parts, as if he needs more accolades. He's been part of Hoover and at Stanford for a long time, and also on the G30, right? That there's a group of economists and other big financial opinion piece writing dudes, right? Uh, the the gurus, the godfathers of economics and finance, and the names that are on this list and have been on this list are absolutely mind blowing. But just a few. I mean, Kevin's on the list. That's a list you want to be on, as opposed to the one we referenced earlier. Coincidentally, one of the other individuals that is one of the leading lights of of the list of 30 gurus is Larry Summers, who had to kind of step aside because of the Epstein files. It's got a lot of people. Excuse me. They got themselves into it, but obviously it's in the news a lot now, and a lot of people have had to, take a step back from public life in the interest of family unity, or or their employers. Summers' affiliation with Harvard, you know, had to take a step back. But brilliant non-list members like Mohammed El-Arian, right? The smartest guy at Allianz, the outgoing, I think he just stepped down as president of one of the colleges at Cambridge. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, you know, Mohammed El-Arian, you see him he's on Bloomberg, he's on CNBC, he's on everything. He explains things beautifully. He's a charming. He's a Jets fan, so you really got to worry about him on that account. But he's this charming. I guess I think Mohammed is Egyptian, maybe? But he's just an amazingly brilliant man. It's all those kind of guys. It's it's Mark Carney from our friend from Canada that Trump drags through the mud every once in a while, and Carney comes out and smacks him in the kisser. Mark Carney is a part of that group too, and our soon to be Jerome Powell replacement is on it too. So that's when you're hanging out with those kind of guys for an extended period, and girls and women and everything in between, it's these are people of high esteem in this field. So you have to be grateful that this will go, selfishly, that this will go well for the U.S. My only reservation, and I'll try to keep it brief. uh, you know, he is people evolve as we talked about a little bit ago. He was seen as a hawk. He was, as I mentioned, he stepped away from the Fed, according to his comments and his writings and interviews, because of his opposition to what he thought was excessive use of QE, quantitative easing. And there's an economic argument for that, a legal argument for that, and a philosophical argument for that. Like, is there too much easy money sloshing around in the system? Does that expose us to more risks? He's also someone who has people on the right have said and criticized Fed policy when it gets mission creep, right? When you're focusing on your dual mandate, but you're also trying to have a hand in equity, inclusion. How do we incentivize more green energy? Good things for life, for the world, for business, for humanity. But is that your mandate? That's something that he's there's a board. You got to get 12 votes to get anything. I mean, not you don't have to have a super majority or anything, but you need to. This is a system that's designed to you compromise, you discuss things, you consider your fellow men and women on the committee. You consider their opinion thoughtfully. You behave like adults. This is not a Trump administration kind of body. There are some Trumpy type people there, and he's going to try to get some more people on the board, and they stay there for a while. But there are sensible people like Lisa Cook, until I'm proved wrong, until he proves otherwise, I'm going to say that Kevin Warsh is a reasonable guy. He was the hawkish guy. Did he become a dove for the convenience of Donald Trump because of who his father-in-law is and the relationship with Trump? I'm not suggesting that at all. Could his natural evolution have been more dovish than hawkish. Absolutely, that happens all the time. It happens with many of the great leaders of the Ellen Greenspan. Probably a bad example. Ellen was one thing, maybe. Bernanke, the greats of the game um, evolve over time, and that's what being a brilliant economist is. That you're a lifelong learner. You can't know everything at the beginning and stay in that little silo. But on the to go to the alternative side of the argument, I don't think that Trump would have appointed him unless he was comfortable that Kevin Warsh was willing to at least listen to Trump's arguments for less restrictive monetary policy, you know, easing things down in a responsible way. Trump Trump would, if it were him, he'd like to push a button because it will help him, as we talked about a couple days ago in my little 4-point dirty little secret plan, which I still feel it coming, and we'll talk about it because recognize we're not going to save the world by saying, "Oh, well, we talked about that 10 months ago." That doesn't save the world, but when you're making decisions for yourself, but more probably when you're faced with other people in your community that are pushing back and saying, "Well, shit, I just got a stimmy check. The markets are up. The ICE agents are they took their masks, whatever it is. The things have chilled out." And he said, "This is the way it's going to be for the rest of time." Donald told me personally on Fox that things are going to be beautiful, and there may be more stimmies coming our way if we just vote for Republicans in the midterm. Let's just give him one more chance. He's never steered us wrong before, that whole thing. So when those knuckleheads come knocking at your door, at least you will have perhaps framed out, it's the scenario planning, which is every day in life. You know, scenario planning is not something you save for the fall of democracy or risks to democracy. You do it in business and in every aspect of your life in some way. But in this case, we're dealing with some pretty high stakes. I think that Kevin Warsh will do his himself and his family a great behave with great distinction and do a good job. He knows his way around the Fed. He has some ideas. Like do I think that the Fed should not be involved in the fact that green energy is one of the most consequential issues facing us as a human race? I think that they certainly should consider that in everything they do. It's not the number one issue. I think DEI is important. It's like Bad Bunny. I was a Bad Bunny fan when I first heard him. The blend, the salsa, all the things that he does quite beautifully and effortlessly. But I'm not the demo, right? I'm not the demographic for that. I know I lived in a Latin America. I lived in two different Latin American countries, Venezuela and Miami. So um, he was wonderful. But do I enjoy him more because he's triggering to a bunch of knuckleheads? Absolutely, absolutely. He was. If you if you looked at my IG feed, which ain't much, it's not. I don't have a million followers, You're welcome to follow. When I follow, send me a note, and I'll make sure to return the favor, whatever, so we can all stay connected. But I was messing with pictures of Bad Bunny on TikTok this morning, just because while I'm still and I don't know that I'll be this time next month. I may tap out just because it's getting to the point, and we're hearing from people, not a tech genius, not a data scientist. We're hearing from people that actually know about how these platforms operate, that they are juicing uh, voices that are sympathetic to the administration and doing the opposite to more progressive voices. They're doing that already, and it's not even been a month. It's going to be a problem, but at the same time, what I want to understand the reason I only jumped on the platform this year, last month. I want to I want to be in touch with what's going on as we're approaching the midterm elections. I can't call up Larry Ellison and say, "Hey, Larry, nice boats, nice sailboats." But what you're doing to democracy, you're way off there, Larry. And tell your brat kid to chill out, right, David? No, he's not. Larry doesn't know me. I don't know Larry, and I'm a better man for it. But the combination of the Ellison hammer with Elon on the other side, Trump administration disobeying court orders, Tulsi Gabbard showing up in Fulton County, Georgia, and taking ballots from the 2020 elections. It's going to be tough. We're going to have to stay focused. Have an extra cup of coffee. But in any case, so Mr. Warsh will, I would say, he won't sail through the Senate because probably, like we were talking about, maybe Democratic senators will have to stand up and say, we're opposing it because of X, Y, and Z. We don't want to be, it's unfortunate because this is a candidate, unless there's something that I missed in my research, that he's a good pick. He's a good pick. You know, Something comes up between now and I would imagine that the Senate won't do anything until the Justice Department dismisses the investigations into Jim Comey and Letitia James, and does so. It does so with prejudice, that they have to. It's so outrageous, you know. Don Lemon, outrageous. I haven't I haven't heard because I haven't been looking that hard um, at John Bolton's case because there was, just reading what's publicly available, that there may have been inadvertently or otherwise, when he was writing his book, did he did he retain classified documents beyond the period of time he was entitled to hold? I don't know the answer to that. I have no idea. I want, John Bolton. I bought his book. I read his book. I enjoyed it. He's a brilliant man. He's a little bit to the right of where I find myself on most foreign policy issues. But he's a career guy that he's not an idiot, which is a shit ton more than you can say for most of the Trump administration. So, yeah. So we'll have a good thought for Kevin, for his wife, his kids if they have any, his father-in-law. We'll find out more about that. It'll be good theater. Will Jay Powell decide to stay on and serve out the remainder of his term? There's only been one Fed chair that had a remaining term, a remaining a remainder term of years following the end of his 4 years as Fed chairman, that decided to stay on after. You think about it. I'm the boss. I'm the chair. Do I want to just hang around and just be a governor? Because I think he has 6, 7, 8. He has he has at least 2 more years that he could be a member of the board. Now, he may see the winds blowing in a particular way, and is afraid that without some steady hands, that there could be mistakes made that will put the economy in peril. So he may choose to, he's also 77. He may say that out of a sense of duty and patriotism, I'm gonna ride out. I'm gonna do 2 more years and vote my conscience, and do the same great job I've done through the entire process. So, yeah, pleasure always, and please do all those wonderful things you do with the restack and the subscribing and the all of that stuff, and we will do it all over again. I guess tomorrow, Wednesday, Thursday. There's definitely. I'm looking at the cabinet secretaries a lot this week, just because Tulsi Gabbard, exactly, her connection, the DJT, Vladimir Putin, Russian security service influence, and Tulsi Gabbard is a Russian apologist, as she was for the Assad regime in Syria. She got in a little hot water, and that was in 2017, I guess, when she got in. She was like, "Oh, not such a bad guy, you know, he's all right." And she's made similar noises about Putin. Yeah. So let me be a popular husband, and wish you a good evening, and thank you. And we'll check in tomorrow. Send me any notes in the app if I can be helpful, and thanks again. And excuse me, sincere congratulations to the Seattle Seahawks organization for playing a good game and winning. There's that history with the Pats too. So it always hurts a little bit, but we have no reason to cry in Boston. So appreciate it. Thank you. Have a great night.